Hello guys, Voltalon here, and welcome to Decklist, the series where we test and showcase the latest in-deck building innovation. Today we are taking a look at the best deck of the format, which is Excutie. Excutie is a deck that had dominated the Overrush Pack 1 format, and is looking to be a very strong contender still in the KP12 era. In KP12, they also got a new card in Excutie Flame that they are looking to abuse to great effect as well. So Excutie is a level 6 centric strategy with cards that also lock you out of attacking with level 7 or higher monsters. Lilius does this, Lara debuffs them, Lumiere also prevents them from attacking as well, and so on and so forth. And that means that you rarely will ever, if not, see any higher level monsters than 6 in this deck. Now, Wicked Shadow Dark Lurker is sometimes used in this deck as something that doesn't need to attack but can still use its effect to clear back row. But in this build, I'm not going to show it because it is the less popular build, and I want to show off the more normal kind of place off for this deck. Being a level 6 centric strategy with cards that also special summon themselves, this deck is very consistent and is not very prone to bricking compared to other decks. If there is a barrier statue on the field, that does change a bit, but generally speaking, you will be able to develop your board very quickly, depending on your hand, and you will have a good number of ways to special summon your cards from your hand through cards like Lumiere, Lilius, Prowlty, and even Flame and Lair and whatnot, and even the Excutie Scramble can special summon any single one of these. On top of that, they also have a good amount of toolboxing. Flower can add one back from your hand, Scramble can special summon one from the graveyard, and you have a lot of tools at your disposal to make use of that toolbox. Lilius is a big beat stick, Excutie Lumiere is a removal spell, Lair is a debuff, Flame is a big stat stick that prevents anything else from attacking, but it gets really big. Lucy is a battle position changer, Prowlty is a little bit of healing and a little bit of milling as well, and Ram is a back removal type of card. So overall, this deck has a lot of versatility, a lot of consistency as well. On top of not really being prone to breaking, you also have the Sintamania Saturnius, which is a pretty good draw spell for level 6 specifically, which obviously will synergize with the level 6 Excutie monsters. So on top of that, they also have some pretty good disruption in the form of their trap card. Excutie Catch is similar to the Crisis at the Sacred Tower that was used in previous formats, but is even better and more versatile in what it can do, because it can also trigger on special summon and it can hit no monsters, unlike Crisis at the Sacred Tower. The main one that people always use is Excutie Emergency, and Excutie Emergency is important because it is an out to the more recently released Dark Hole, which wipes the entire board, and it is very strong, so Excutie Emergency is very much necessary to run at some number of copies in your deck to make sure you don't automatically die to this, because your other in-theme traps require at least some amount of board presence, and Excutie Emergency routines that for you. It's also better into the mirror match, which is why this will always generally be sticking in builds of the deck, because cards like Excutie Cat sometimes can be too low value for you to use effectively, and cards like Emergency will always be very strong. Or if you're running things like a Buffet Slime or Hard Defense, is also just like generally going to be better for you in that matchup. But for standard like normal matchups, Excutie Catch is very strong as good disruption. And that's for it for the in-team cards, and that is generally how the deck is going to be playing. You'll be playing a more of a tempo-based game plan with your really fast way of developing your board and your control tools in your traps. And this will give your deck this like really like strong stability that allows you to very easily make the plays that you want to make and be quite resilient as well with Emergency and Catch. So overall, this deck is really good, really consistent, really strong, and really has access to a wide range of options. Let's quickly go over the card by card for my build here. 3 Lilius, very important. It's a big beat stick, 2500, very good to beat over basically most things that you have to worry about. Lumiere is a removal spell for the higher level monsters. Not as good in the mirror because it only hit level 7s and 8s, but I still think this is very important because it is one of the ways to special summon without having prior board presence, which is very important. Lara only playing one copy because it isn't as good into Excutie matchup, and there are other cards that can replace it in terms of how important it is for you to have. It is a way to debuff your full all face-up higher level monsters, which matters for like the big defenders like Lurker and Shock Dragon and whatnot. Combos well with the Lilius for that purpose, but for other purposes, not necessary at all. Things like the Lucy, which can switch battle position, can also help you out the bigger monsters as well. Speaking of outing bigger monsters, you have Excutie Flame, the newer card from the KP12 pack. This can discard a card to gain a lot of attack equal to the number of level 6 higher monsters on the field times 600. This counts your own board as well, which obviously you'll be swallowing your board a lot, so this can get pretty big just by playing the deck itself. But if you're playing against an Excutie opponent as well, this will gain even more attack on top of that. So this can get extremely big just out of nowhere and can really pressure your opponent, deal a lot of damage if you don't have a response to it. Excutie Flow, very important for your toolboxing game plan. Just add any of your Excuties from your graveyard to your hand. Specifically level 6 non-water monsters with 500 defense. So technically this can add non-Excutie named monsters, but most of them aren't really worth it, so we're just going to focus on the Excutie themed ones. It can't add itself a recursive value, but you don't really want to add it with itself normally anyway. We're also on the 2 copies of Lucy. You only need 2, but still a very strong card and being able to make sure you can close out the game faster. And 3 Proudy, which goes with the Lumiere in terms of being able to special summon yourself, special summon a monster without any prior board presence. Its effect isn't particularly great, but sometimes the life point game does actually come up and saving you for a whole turn also. And also the mill one lets you set up your grave for your Lucy's and your scrambles and whatnot. I forgot to mention something about Excutie Flame in that it is it is another way of getting you board presence without any other prior board presence. This isn't useful on turn 1 or in certain situations where your opponent just for some reason doesn't have a higher level on board. But in other situations that aren't those, you will be able to just use this for a free special summon to get your other special summons that need other monsters on board online. As for our low levels, 1 Pitch Black Werewolf, this is for Mirror Force. Everyone's going to be on Mirror Force or Magic Cylinder, and the Werewolf can swap both of those. The 3 copies of Sea Dragon Knight for another way of checking back row. Good against the Mirror Match, good against the trap-based deck that really care about resolving their trap cards. Sea Dragon Knight is just generally really strong. Splitter Slime to combo with the Werewolf to make sure you can have more access to it and play through your opposing like battle traps if you're in a matchup where that actually matters. And also the 1000 debuff is really helpful for you in terms of being over your opponent's big stuff. This is even more important since we are cutting down on layers. So Splitter Slime is overall very strong. 3 copies of Strange Spectre of Celestial Terrans is in my opinion the flex slot. I'm running it because I like the consistency that it provides, but there are a lot of cards I can play here, like the main deck barriers at you, or cards that draw more cards, like Delirium Papillon, or Galactica Jamairu, or other tech options like Siesta Torero. Just a lot of things I can run in the slot. This is my personal preference to run Severance Seal. For spell cards, we run 3 Scramble, really strong one. It's kind of reminiscent of Secret Order, but it is more toolboxy in nature, instead of just reviving a random normal. This can fetch you into any of your tools, and it's really strong for that reason. 3 Sintamani of Saturnius for your draw spell, and 1 Dark Hole. Everyone's on Dark Hole. This format is just incredibly strong way of clearing out your opponent's board, and it doesn't matter if you're wiping your own board if you can just make it back with your plethora or special summons. So overall really strong, especially in this deck. 2 Catch, 2 Emergency, 1 Buffet Slime. Buffet Slime is good for stopping OTKs. Like let's say your opponent Dark Hole and they went for their like Excutie setup, you can go Buffet Slime. Instead of taking like 5,000 plus damage, you're only taking 2,000, which is a huge decrease in the amount of damage you're taking. Or if you're playing something against something like Cyber Dragon, you can save yourself a lot of life points in certain situations, and it's overall a really strong card. 1 Mirror Force, it's Mirror Force. You can play Torrential Magic Cylinder as well. I think Mirror Force is generally the one that is going to be good into most matchups here, so I think Mirror Force is going to be the best one to run. Fight deck wise, we have 1 layer in case you're playing against something with like a lot of defensive walls, like zombies. You can drop in an extra layer to make sure you can beat over the lurker. 2 Rhyme here. Now, I've been thinking about cutting this by 1, but I'm gonna keep it at 2 for now in case I need that extra back removal. This obviously is side in for matchups where you need to actually like pop important back row. But I find myself only really siding in 1 as of nowadays, so just like keep that in mind when you build this deck for yourself. 3 Barrier Statue because it's Barrier Statue floodgate effect that stops a lot of the very potent kind of special summoning type of strategies, and a very good contender for running in the main deck if you really want to. 1 Sealer Wave for maximum, 2 Backbeat for Graveyard Beast decks. Outside of like the ones that have like traps for that, like the Fusion Plant deck or Dragoncaster or Spellcaster variants, even things like Cyber Dragon that once generally the machines in grave, you can also hit that as well. Like generally it's really strong against the mono type kind of playstyle decks. 3 gold cyclone back row removal is back row removal. That is really good going second, so if you're going second and you're playing against a deck that really cares about the back row from the gold cyclone, and unless it is a back row deck that wants a graveyard also, then you run back beam instead. Magic Cylinder also for maximum deck, and 2 traditional attacks for combo decks to curb their draw power game plan. And that's all for the cards in the deck. Let's take a look at some gameplay. Our first match is against Sky Savior, and while this match itself isn't particularly good, it does show off the general game flow of our deck, so I thought it would be a good one to show off regardless. They will go first and just set their whole hand here. They do have effects that they could technically activate in the Soleo, but there's no reason to risk just leaving a 0 attack monster on board for no reason, especially since you can't set the additional fusion if you do end up drawing into it. Back to us though, we will draw for turn, special summon this Lumiere as we have no monsters on the field. Reveal a Lucy for this Prowsy, use its effect to gain 500 life points and send top card of our deck to the grave. Unfortunately, we didn't hit another Excutie, but that's fine overall. We'll tribute it for the Lucy and use its effect to shuffle the Prowdy back into the deck to flip once their monsters face up, and we do hit the Soleo here, which is 0 attack. We tribute over the Splitter Slime for the Lilius here. We could technically special summon it out again without spending the Splitter Slime, but I do want to expand my hand here to draw into my other cards here. Go to battle, we'll use the Lilius, swing over the Soleo, and use the Lucy to swing into the defense position monster, which turns out to be the Seer. And then we'll go direct with the Lumiere to do a large chunk of damage and pass back to them. They will draw here a pretty interesting hand here. They will save the Sealer and the Lure here and go straight for fusion here. I guess they forgot to activate the Sealer for whatever reason. Just not everyone's gonna be yeah, sometimes I guess people just sometimes forget effects, I suppose. They'll go into the Altiera here, which has a floodgate to prevent the activation of normal spell cards that aren't named fusion, which is a neat little floodgate effect if we can't out it. We'll see how that goes for them. They'll go for the Graceful Charity that also found to discard some cards here. Interesting that they chose to do it that way, discarding their 2/3 monster here, because if they're going for the Soleo here and they don't find a fusion, they're gonna have a 0 attack monster on board that can very easily be taken advantage of by us here. They'll go for the Soleo here, they'll reveal and check the top 4 for a fusion, which they do not find, so they will have a 0 attack monster on board that does absolutely nothing here. They'll use the Altera to attack over the Lumiere, which is posing absolutely no threat to them. They should have either attacked over the Lilius or the Lucy here, as that would be one of the ways of us attacking over the Altera here, but they chose not to, so I guess that's their choice, I suppose. And we will draw here, and we will draw... Flame is a pretty good one, and that is actually lethal. Now, if they didn't leave the 0 attack monster on board, Flame would be special summoning Flame and using it to run over the Altera here. But because they chose to just give us lethal, we will be taking it. We'll special summon the Flame, use its effect to discard the Prowdy and gain attack so that we hit 4100, shift everything to defense in case they run Mirror Force, and walk into their 0 attack Soleo for lethal damage. Our second game here is against Fusion Plant. This isn't a deck that you see very often, but can be very threatening if you're not prepared for it. Unfortunately, we do actually have a side deck, so this shouldn't be too difficult of a matchup. They will go first, and they will use the Shield Return Treasures to discard the Gatling here to draw 2 cards. Then they'll start the whole hand and pass back to us. We'll draw here, use the Celestial Sevens to check the top 3 and find I guess the Prowdy will have to do here. We already have one in rotation, so that's not that great, but it could be worse here. We'll use the Prowdy to send a Lucy on the top. Now that's something we didn't have in rotation before, and that's fantastic. We'll gain 500 life points. Special summon the Lilia set to go to battle and walk into their monsters here. We did get fought kind of lucky with the Servants, although I guess it was a 2 in 3 chance to hit something that Servants could run over anyway, so it wasn't that lucky in the first place. They will draw here. They will fire off the Graceful Charity, draw 3, discard 2, very good one to see here. Then they go for the Galactica Jomai to shuffle the 2 spells that they have in the graveyard into the deck to draw 1 card. Go for a Neo Plandish, activates effect to mill 1, they mill the plant so they get 700 life points, and they can't be destroyed by traps. During this time they activate it, so they will just use it to run over the Lilius here to make sure we can't have a harder time actually beating over it, and pass back to us. We will draw here, that is a fine one. We use the Prowdy first to mill 1 card and gain 500, then we'll use Celestial Sevens to find off the top what we'll have to do. We're sending it here in case we draw a Splitter Slime off the Center Money so that we can fetch it and play through things like your Shadowfall stuns or whatnot. We'll go for this Center Bunny here, discard a Severance and draw 2. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything like that, but we did find a Flower here, which we can use to add back the Priority for 1 more mill. If we do find a Lumiere here, which we do, we are able to use Scramble to summon it, then and spin away the Planisher, and that gamble did pay off, so we are able to do exactly that. Scramble, Lumiere, spin the Flower and the Planish away back into the deck. Special summon the Lilius and tribute for the lair, go to battle phase, and just swing in for a huge chunk of damage here. And we were playing we're trying to play through Return as well. If they had used Return, then the Lilius will be able to be over it. In the end, we do still swing in the Lilius for big damage. And if they had the Return there, they had the Return anyway. But you could make the argument of not swinging for that. Oh, but I think the 2500 damage is still very much appreciated in a deck that does struggle to deal damage quickly. They will just go here, they will use the Ship Return Treasure, discard the Gatling again, draw 2 cards. Go for the Gekka here to add back the Lindo, go for a Gekka here to add back another Lindo. And tribute for the Neo Plandish. We could use Excutie Catch on this, but I figure I want to wait for at least the fusion monsters, or at least the fusion material first, to use the catch on. So we're playing a bit greedy with this, but because I know that we have a lot of access to Lumiere, especially since we already have one in rotation, I think that it is not as big of a threat to actually let this stay on board. So use a Star Restart here to get a Beam Soldier in defense here, and then use the Invading Nature to pop our Emergency, which is completely fine. We didn't actually need it that much in this matchup here. So use the Planish here, gain 700 attack, set everything else. Head over the Lumiere and pass back to us. And we'll use the Siege Dragonite here to track the back row. We find the Shadowfall Spore here, which is not a trap notably. We'll tribute it for the Lumiere, use its effect to spin it and the Planish back into the deck. Then we'll use the Excutie Scramble here to summon the Lilius here and use that to flip the Beam Soldier up into attack here. My thinking here is I could use the either the Lucy or the Lair to attack into the face down monster, and then use the Lilius to attack over the Beam Soldier. This will play better into the Shadowflower studs here if they had it, because we will be able to clear an additional monster alongside threatening lethal damage. Unfortunately, because the opponent does not have that, they will concede after we flip their monster into attack position, because that is representing lethal damage. Game 2 here, they have decided to go first again, and they will use the Ship Treasure to discard the Trance to draw 2 cards, and go again, discarding your Plandish, draw 2 more cards, set everything, pass back to us. This is a relatively good hand, especially since we draw 2 Sintamani here. We'll go Lumiere here, use Sintamani, discard 1 with Siege Dragonite to draw 2, we'll go again, discard Split Slime this time to draw 2 more. Then use Siege Dragonite to shuffle the monsters that we just discarded with the Sintamanis to check and find that they have a Invading Nature here. Then we'll normal summon the Lair and the Barrier Statue, and we set the Scramble here. Now, I think this is a misplay. I already knew that it had Invading Nature, and I wanted the Scramble can fetch either the Lair or the Lumiere if our board gets wiped here, and that would have been pretty good to have as a follow-up play. And we already knew that it had Invading Nature, so it definitely wasn't going to stick on the board. So, definitely a misplay on my part, and definitely does come back to bite me here. We'll use our high attack monster to attack into the defense position monsters. We know that I have a lot of defensively strong monsters here, so the Barrier Statue was unlikely to connect with its puny 1000 attack. So I use my high attack to make sure I can actually get in the 1000 damage here. And after that, we'll just pass back to them with the Barrier Statue that prevents them from fusion summoning here. And they will draw here, they will go for Beam Soldier and Invading Nature. Not using the one that we already knew the location of, which is definitely a misplay here. So if I ever wanted to pop it with a Siege Dragonite, I could just use the Siege Dragonite to check that. Regardless, I use Invading Nature to destroy my Scramble, normal summon another monster and go for the Trance. Because of the Barrier Statue, they aren't able to special summon this Trance from their graveyard if they wanted to, but it's not like they can actually do much with that anyway. They'll run over the Lumiere here because they have the Shadowfall stun, so they want to make sure they can resolve, and they'll pass back to us. We'll draw here a interesting hand here. We'll go for the Flower here, tributing over the Lair. Use its effect to add back the Lumiere, then tribute over the Flower for it, then use its effect to spin it and the Trance away. Now we're doing it in this way because we want to keep the Barrier Statue on the board to make sure we can play around Shadowflower turn. And we'll explain why after we do our plays here. We'll go Siege Dragonite, check the back row, and we find they do indeed have Shadowflower stance, so that Shadowflower return rather, so we will be doing the play here. We'll go Proudly, mill 1, gain 500 life points, and tribute over it for the Lilius here. Now I should have just spent the other Proudly in case that they had Barrier Statue, but I completely forgot that they could be siding into it of their own will as well. I wanted to keep this in hand because it will combo well with other executives that we draw later on if we need like a starter to make sure that we can actually do all of our plays. But this play line will come back to bite me later on as well. Here we'll go battle phase, we'll use the Lilia's attack in. Now if they choose to use the return on this, they can't actually special summon everything because everything in the grave is a Earth attribute monster, and Barrier Statue prevents that from being special summoned. And if they didn't use the return here, we would just pass back, we wouldn't need to deal 1000 with this to make sure that it stays on the board for our opponent's turn. But they do decide to actually use the return here to shuffle 3 and destroy the Lilias from the field. So we feel that it is quite safe to run in with the Barrier Statue because it is less likely for them to have another trap on top of this. So we run in, deal the 1000 and pass back to them. And they will draw here. They will for Jomaiwu here, shuffle 2 spells right into the deck, invading nature and ship to draw 1 card. Normal Bean Soldier, normal a Gatlings, normal a Barrier Statue, go to battle here. Attack and deal 2000 damage and pass back. Now we are forced to play through a Barrier Statue here, which can happen if we draw Flame here, but which we don't. So we are in a very bad position here. We'll just set 3 and pass and hope and pray here. They will draw another Invading Nature here. They'll use the Invading Nature to destroy both our traditional taxes, which would have been nice if they actually had draw power in their grip here, but they didn't actually draw into that. So they'll just normal summon the Beast from Jersey, go to battle phase, attack in for damage, leaving the Barrier Statue up and pass back to us. Again, if we can find Flame here, we can put ourselves in a better position here, which we do not. We'll go set Split Slime Tribute for Proudy, use the effect to gain 500 life points. Use the effect of the other Proudy to gain 500 more life points, set over it with the Lumiere and normal summoning Pitch Black Werewolf attacking over the Barrier Statue here. In retrospect, we probably should have attacked over the Beansville Jersey here, as the Barrier Statue on board still means that they have to work to make sure they can actually still fusion summon with it on board here, but as you can see in the hand, that's not really going to matter here. They'll draw into the fusion first they'll go into Great Charity here to draw 3 cards, which finds them the fusion that they needed. They'll go for the Atrans here, use the Atrans to discard a Lindo, summon another Atrans, go for the fusion, and fuse into the Maker Entrance, use the Maker Entrance's effect to summon the Plendish from the graveyard, use the effect to gain 0 attack, but gain the protection from destruction from traps, so it plays the Mirror Force, which we unfortunately do not have. To go to battle, deal a bunch of damage, which turns out to be lethal. Game 3 here, we have found a Barrier Statue, which is good if we can actually set it up. Unfortunately, we do not draw another monster here, so we will be forced to tribute over it to make a play here. Luckily, we did draw into a Ram here, which is pretty good into their back row heavy deck here. We'll pass back on this. We put in an attack to just try to make him think we have catch, and also it is at least to me a safer line to make. I don't think that they'd be on satellite packages most of the time. So if they did have it, they'd be able to punish me, but I highly doubt they'd actually be running it. And it prevents them from just running over it with their lower attack monsters, because they will know that we have low defense monsters and will just run over us anyway. And I'm fine to sacrifice at least maybe a 400 or 700 damage, or 16 even, if they find an issue. So it's not that big of a life point deficit if we do end up losing the Ram to a 2-tribute monster here. They will go for their turn here. They'll normal summon their Oniyuri for some reason. I guess they just really wanted to mill 1. Unfortunately, it does not pay off here. They'll mill a trap card here instead of a plant monster. And we do mill a Flame, which is really good for our Floor and Scramble. The normal summon Barrier Statue, thinking that that exactly will be enough to curb our aggression here. And because they can't actually attack over the 1600, they just pass back to us, where we can draw for turn a fine hand here. We use the Ram to discard the Floor to the pop back row. We hit a stance, which is not bad. We use the Dragon Knight to shuffle and check the back row, find a Mirror Force here, which is a very important thing to find here. That allows us to play with that in mind here. We'll shift around to defense position so that it does not get blown up by Mirror Force if we do end up using it for tempo. We'll now summon the other Siege Dragon Knight, set the Excutie catch, which is another reason why we had to make sure the Ram stayed on the board, and went to battle, destroying the Barrier Statue and the Oniyuri and passing back to them. They will draw. That's okay. We'll see what they draw off the Shop of some treasures here. Just kidding. We'll use the traditional attacks here to crush their hopes and dreams. We hit exactly the two monsters that we needed to tribute summon the Atrans here, which is very good, and very fortunate for us here. They will go Invading Nature here to destroy or actually catch here, which is unfortunate. I would have wanted to keep that for their fusion plays, but As you can see here, they don't actually have a play in this very moment here, which is very important here. Unfortunately, because of our decision to shift our ramp to defense, their Lindo can still beat over it. So we will have to find some way to get back into it, and let's just use Scramble. We'll just use Scramble to spot summon the Ram, discard the Proudy to destroy the Mirror Force that we already know about. Use the Dragonite's effect to check the other backer, which is a Wish, which doesn't matter right now. Then we'll just tribute for both of the Lilias, so we'll keep the Dark Hole in hand just in case they draw a backer removal to pop it. We'll go to battle phase, deal a huge chunk of damage, and pass back to them. And let's see if they draw anything good here. Not great here. Oh, they'll go for the Bean Soldier Z and the Lindo to tribute summon a Plandish here. They'll use Plandish to mill one and gain no attack here, which would definitely cause them to lose here because I can just crash into it, and they just go directly attack it. Just go direct attack with the other guys. But they try to I guess. This play really doesn't matter here because they're going to lose anyway. They will use the Spore to summon another monster, then use Shadow Flower Wish to bring back the Plandish to, I guess, try to gain the 700 attack again. But this is still going to be too lethal for my part. They'll try again, and unfortunately, they don't even hit the Plant Monster, so seeing that, they'll just concede. And the last game is against Light Machine Fusion. Now, this is not a popular deck competitively, but I'm sure a good number of you want to see the Cyber Dragons in action. We will start the turn with a tribute summon of the Lilias and starting everything else and passing back to them, where they will draw, unfortunately, not another Light Machine for the Cyber Serpent, which requires another one on the field. Which is very important because that means that the Mirror Innovator cannot actually hit over the 2500 that Lilias has now. They'll just set 2 gold battle over the Werewolf and pass back to us. And let's see what we can draw here, which is a pretty good here. Using the money to find ball cards here. And we find the lair here, which we can special summon. Then we can use the Splitter Slime to send it to grave to debuff the Mirror Innovator by 1000 and special summon the Werewolf. And then we'll go for the Lucy here, and then we'll go to battle phase. Swing in, this will play around like the popular machine traveling battle emotion if they did have it, which they do not anyway, but it would be nice to have the sense of security over things like Mirror Force or battle emotion and whatnot. We'll just go to battle here, we'll do a bunch of damage here and pass back to them. And they will draw here a Cyber Serpent with a Light Machine this time. Let's see if they hit it, and they whiff. Great. They'll use the Iron Onslaught to destroy our Dark Hole here. That's a good one that we unfortunately missed out on. And go for Mirror Innovator here. They'll use the Mirror Innovator to shuffle back a singular Mirror Innovator, go to battle phase, and walk over the Werewolf, which telegraphs at least some amount of back row interaction. It could be battle emotion, or could be, in this case, because we already know the Mirror Force. We will go and draw for a turn here, and we'll go for the Flame here. Use the Flame's effect to discard the Serens, get a button attack, and then shift to defense to play around their very telegraphed trap card here. We'll go to battle, attack with the Flame, and they'll go for the Mirror Force for tempo purposes. This is a fine play here. Because of the Mirror Innovator with Piercing, they have a really good chance of just like winning on the crackback here. And let's see how that pans out with them. They'll draw for turn here. They go for a Cyber Entry to special summon the Proto Cyber Dragon. Go for a Cross of Drone, discarding the Kodo and draw 1 card. They go for the Cyber Dragon and go for the Fusion here. They don't actually need the Power Bond here because it's the same amount of damage except just overkill. So they just go for the normal fusion here because you don't need to waste the power bond just yet. Going for the Cyber Twin. Unfortunately, we do have the Excutie Catch to flip it to defense because they are level 8 monsters. So that'll be basically a wasted fusion spell for them here. They'll go for the Cyber Phoenix here. They'll go for the Cyber Griffin here. Use this effect to discard the Sea Dragonite. So draw 1 card and then prevent the Mirror Innovator from being destroyed by trap cards here. They'll use the Mirror Innovator's attack to shovel the Cyber Dragon back, go to battle phase, walk over the Lilies and pass back to make sure that they can play around Emergency as well, as if they destroy the Lucy without no other bonds to the board, they can just summon the Lilias or some other alternative back and just like hit them really hard on the crackback. We'll go back to our turn here and we'll special summon the Proudy here, use the Proudy's effect to mill 1, give 5 life points, and then go for the Lucy here to flip that Cyber Twin back up, and that is because we want to debuff it with this Splitter Slime here, sending the Proudy to special summon the Werewolf back onto the field, and then we'll tribute 2 of the Lilias out, and then go to battle phase, swing in with no field of trap cards because of the Werewolf, and pass back to them. Now they'll draw for turn, and they have the Cyber Dragon here with the Cyber Serpent in the milling 3, and they still do not hit it, which is wild. They'll go for the Proto Cyber Dragon, go for the Power Bond here, and go for the Cyber Rush Dragon here. Use its effect. After they use Cyber Entry to special summon a Cyber Dragon to tribute over it for tribute set, then use Cyber Rush here to draw, and this, they should have kept the Iron Onslaught here, maybe they just thought they forgot they can only special summon machines off of it. But the right play was to keep the Iron Onslaught to pop one of my back row here, which actually really matters here. They go for Battle Phase and try to go for lethal here. Unfortunately, that gets stopped by the Buffet Slime here. We don't take any damage with it, but it still serves the same purpose of making sure that we do not die here. We take 0 damage because of this, and they will pass back, taking the 2800 from Powerbomb and ending the game. Game 2 here, let's see how our Light Machine opponent proceeds and tries to win this. They go for a cross of the drone here, discarding the Proto Cyber Dragon, and drawing 1 card here, they'll tribute it for the Cyber Dragon attack position, and set everything else in pops back here. We'll tribute over the Sea Dragonite for a layer, and then special summon the Lilies, and then special normal summon the Bear Statue, set in the backbeat. Go to battle phase and walk in. Unfortunately, this Cyber Griffin has too much defense for the Bear Statue here, so it will be leaving this other monster unattended here. And we'll just pass it back to them with that. And they will draw here a pretty interesting hand. They actually get to do some pretty cool plays here. They go for the Cyber Griffin, use the Iron Onslaught to destroy backbeat, tribute summon the Cyber Dragon, use the Cyber Griffin, discard the Joint Rex here, target the Cyber Dragon, and also draw a card. Then they'll go for a Cyber Serpent here that they just pop back to mill 3 and then do nothing because they did not hit it again. Then they'll go for the Mirror Innovator, shuffling the Joint Rex, Cyber Dragon, Proto Cyber Dragon for a bunch of attacks, set the Mirror Force, go to battle phase, and walk over some monsters and pass back to us. We will draw for turn. Pretty good hand here. We'll go for the backbeat to reset their graveyard setup here, shuffling back as many monsters as we can possibly shuffle back here. And then we'll go for a draw here. We'll go for the Excutie Flame here, go for Flip Slime, send the Flame for Flip Slime's effect to debuff by a block, use the Flow's effect to add back Lilius, and then just get 2 Lilius on the board for maximum damage here, set a Magic Cylinder, and then run directly into Mirror Force. Mirror Force is a fun and interesting card. They will draw here Iron Onslaught, which destroys the Magic Cylinder, and that's where I just decide I am conceding here. Alright, that was a pretty fortunate run from our opponent here. Let's see if they can run it back in game 3 here. We will start the turn here, going for a Excutie Proudy here, using Excutie Proudy's effect to mill 1, gain 500 life points, then tribute it for the floor, use its effect, back the Proudy and use Proudy's effect again, just for summon itself to mill 1 again, gain 500 life points, then summon the lair and pass back to our opponent here. We don't have any back row, so our opponent's Duel Cyclone isn't able to pop anything, but they are able to go for the Cyber Dragon here, and then go for the Cyber Griffin, using it to discard the Serpent, drawing 1, and going for the Pro Cyber just to beat over our monsters, and then just clean up our board and pass back to us here. That is the disadvantage of leaving our Excuties in defense here, as they are very frail in that position. But it was better that way to save life points in general if they have like enough to just run over all of them. But we're probably still able to make some play here, especially since after we just drew the Proudy here, which can summon itself, and give 500 life points back to us. We'll tribute for both our Excutie here, Excutie Lucy's effect to shift that Cyber Dragon to defense where it is able to be beaten over. And then we'll set this Buffer Slime attack over both of the Cyber Dragon names here and pass back to our opponent, just making sure they have as little names for fusion as possible. They don't draw a particularly great hand. They don't draw a particularly great hand here, so they just set everything and pass back to us. And we still have the Lucy on board here, so we are able to get some damage in still. We'll go for Center Money, just going to see Dragonite to draw 2 cards. Then we'll go for the Lucy to flip this Barrier Statue back into attack position. We'll normal summon this other Barrier Statue that we have, discard the Flame for the Flame, and shift the Lucy to defense, run over the Barrier Statue for 1900 damage and pass back to our opponent. They will draw here a pretty neat hand here. The Gold Cyber Dragon, use the Griffin effect to discard the Kodo for Cyber Dragon to gain the protection and drawing 1 card. Normal summon another Cyber Griffin here. Unfortunately, they cannot give the buff to Cyber Dragon 2 times in a row, so they can't actually discard and draw another card here, so they just settle for tribute setting the creator and this other Bicor here. Go to battle, walk over the Barrier Statue with the Cyber Dragon and pass back to us. We will draw for turn here, a pretty good one. We use the Lucy to flip that creator right back into attack position. He'll use the Proudy select to summon itself, gain 500 life points off of its mill 1 effect. Tribute it for the Flower, use Flower's effect to add the Flame back to hand. Use Lumiere's effect to shuffle the Flower and the creator back into their decks. Then first summon the the lair in defense, and then use the backbeat to set back their graveyard setup again, and draw 1 card, which we will promptly discard using the Flame's effect, and then we'll tribute set over the Lumiere with the other Flame. Now we could have gained more attack here if we had sequenced it better, because the creator was something that would have given us an additional 600 attack. But I guess technically we played over a Magic Cylinder that we didn't know existed, so I guess that's cool. Let's see this guys in a moment. Well, we won't be able to kill the Cyber Dragon here, I will just pass back to them. where they will draw no fusion yet, but they are able to go for 2 mirror innovators here with this spy code here, getting tribute for 2 tributes because of its effect. And then they go for the effects of both mirror innovators here to shuffle 1 machine each to gain piercing for both of them, which is a lot of damage and basically lethal if we did not have this buffered slime here, which prevents most of the damage here. We only take 2000 at it, and the payoff here is getting to live another turn. We will draw here, and we got a Dark Hole, which is really strong here. We'll use that to wipe the board, use the Proteus effect to mill 1 and also summon itself. Then go for Siege Knight to check for back row, fight the Ghost Cyclone, doesn't really do anything. Execute floor, add back the Lilius here, use Lilius, and that is where I present lethal on board and our opponent concedes. And that is the end of the showcase. We have shown off a lot of the deck's strengths, and this deck, as shown in the matches, very versatile, very consistent, very powerful, and is definitely the deck to watch out for moving into KP12, and already actually proved itself in the Overwatch format, representing like 50% or so of like local Japanese local wins, and it has made people consider calling it tier 0. Personally, I'm in the camp that it is not tier 0 yet, but it's definitely getting very close, especially with other like slightly bigger event results. But regardless, overall this deck is very powerful. I do plan on showing the mirror match in a separate video if I have the time. The mirror match is something that you really do have to prepare for, and is definitely going to be something that you see very often in a competitive landscape. So I think that'll be one that is very important to show off, but I will do so in a separate video when I have the time to do so. But overall, I think I've shown off basically what I want to for this video. If you want to see more content, let me know in the comments below, or you can join my server in the description below to interact more with my community and also join some events that I host from time to time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.